With the pandemic acting as a catalyst and the majority of transactions moving from offline to online, this is the right time to introduce and implement digital identity across Quebec and Canada. So, what is digital identity? It is the collection of data about a particular individual or an entity that is collected over a period of time. Unlike any other identification, the trust in the credential is very important to access a particular service or to perform a particular transaction. What is the public's mindset or the public's expectation about digital identity? More than 70% of Canadians expect government and private to come together to offer a foray of services in terms of that can be accessed through digital identity, and this anticipation or the expectation would prove advantages to the service providers because they can offer better services, and customers will be showing lesser friction, and the adoption rate will be very high due to the existing anticipation. What are the existing challenges with the current systems? One is privacy. So let's say if I am submitting my bank account statement as a address proof to access mobile service. In that scenario, I am unintentionally submitting my transaction details, and that is a major risk from my part. And secondly, integrity. So let's say if Quebec government is providing a local proof to its residents, and if the resident is moving to Alberta and want to access a service, the local service provider in that province might not be able to verify the authenticity of the proof, and hence they may deny the transaction or the particular service to the Quebec resident. So the lack of integrity is a challenge in the current system. And the resilience with the current system, and the resilience in terms of the current system, they are very vulnerable to the cyber attacks and other forms of data hacking and manipulation. So that is a huge risk in the current scenario. And apart from this, in every aspect of the transaction, starting from creating a credential to delivering the service, every layer has its own problem in the current system. And due to the current challenges, organizations are finding it very difficult to provide customized service to the customer, and also to minimize the amount of friction that is happening between offering a service and the customer's usageability. And what are the types of digital identity systems that exist right now? Internal, like the ones that is offered uniquely by a particular institution to its own customers. External, like for example the one where we use Gmail ID to log into LinkedIn or any other platform for that matter. And centralized, where we use a centralized collection of data to access a different range of services. And distributed, where we use multiple range of service providers to create the credentials, and also use the credential to access wide variety of services, which is the most efficient system of all. And who are the stakeholders in this digital identity system? So it can be they are consumers and business and institutions, the asset owners who are transacting the asset, and the employers and the employees, and the public and the government in terms of receiving and sending benefits to the taxpayers, and public and regulatory bodies where public wants to file the income tax or any other regulatory compliance mechanisms. What are the advantages of using digital identity? And assuming that the small and medium enterprises become just 1% efficient using the identity, it would contribute to $7 billion in GDP to Canada. And also, 3 to 4% of GDP will be potentially unlocked in mature economies according to a McKinsey report, and that roughly translates to 62 billion in Canada. What are the other advantages? So government can have better access to the citizens data and their bank account details, through which they can instantly transfer any benefit that they intend to, or they can retrieve any information that is pertinent to a particular citizen, and citizens will be able to prove their identity very easily without the need for multiple physical documents. And also financial institutions can reduce their can reduce their operational cost by a larger extent, and also they can increase their customized offerings by a larger extent. One of the huge risks involved in this digital identity is the misuse of data and the data breach, and both these challenges can be efficiently handled through the effective implementation of blockchain. Blockchain would be the right way to implement digital identity, and that is the best way in the current scenario. And in the all advantages that is posed by the digital identity, we have taken one particular example to give you an idea of the potential benefits of it, and my colleague James will take you through the personalized pricing. Thank you.
With regard to digital identity, one area of interest or concern, depending on your vantage point, is the use of a consumer's digital footprint to offer more personalized pricing through use of data science and machine learning methods. In this context, it is important to define digital footprint as all digital personal information that a financial institution can realistically obtain about consumers on a massive scale. This includes credit history, job history, financial history, purchase history, internet activity, social media activity, etc. Now, one potential benefit of personalized pricing within the context of digital identity is the use of personal consumer information to better assess the creditworthiness of loan applicants. Research has indicated that the exclusive use of historical credit activity for a consumer is lacking in accuracy when compared to methods that incorporate economic and, most importantly, personal factors. To this end, the use of a broader range of predictors could help improve personal pricing for consumers, which would be of particular use to banks extending loans and insurance companies setting premiums. A more accurate assessment of a client's creditworthiness is of benefit to both the client, who avoids being overcharged while also not being extended a loan that they cannot realistically pay off, and the financial institution, who maintains profits without exacerbating the risk of default. While many more factors were in play in the financial crisis of 2008, not the least of which was fraud and willful ignorance on an institutional scale, one of the causes of the crash was the extension of credit to consumers who weren't creditworthy. This was partially made possible through the inaccuracy of credit scores used to assess mortgage applicants. Furthermore, it could be beneficial to use social media data to assess the creditworthiness of consumers who have a sparse credit history, students and immigrants, for example, thus improving the accessibility of credit to those who are in need of it and are deserving. That personalized pricing benefits consumers and providers symbiotically is dependent on the fact that there is a positive correlation between the price of a product and its marginal cost. Put simply, it makes sense for financial institutions to charge consumer-dependent rates for loans and insurance policies due to the differing levels of risk associated with each consumer. However, when offering financial products that do not pose risk to the institution, personalized pricing at best results in reduced consumer surplus and greater profit margins for institutions. At worst, it can lead to the price gouging of price-insensitive consumers and the potential exclusion of price-sensitive consumers, as the latter are less desirable as customers. It's also worth considering the potential social externalities of the use of social media data for assessing creditworthiness. One study found that while the use of social media data did improve the accuracy of credit scores by examining which social media users were associating with who, the logic being that you can tell a lot about a person's trustworthiness given who they associate with, it was noticed that this impacted people's behavior on social media. Quote, "We also investigate how the accuracy of social network-based scores changes when consumers can strategically construct their social networks to attain higher scores. We find that those who are motivated to improve their scores may form fewer ties and focus more on similar partners." End quote. Not to put too fine a point on it, but social media has already severely impacted the social fabric of society. It's worth considering the dangers of tying social media status with financial stability, particularly if one of the studied impacts is increased social stratification. Our recommendations for mitigating these risks would be to advise that the use of personal information for the purpose of personalized pricing be further regulated, much in the same way that the GDPR in the EU bars companies from using any consumer personalized information without prior consent. Additionally, while Canadian law prohibits price discrimination on the basis of sex, race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, etc., it is conceivable that the use of personalized data could result in illegal discrimination all the same if the predictors used are themselves predictive of sex, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc. For example, a data scientist modeling consumer demand could, intentionally or not, select a list of predictors that implicitly predict the race of the consumer, while not using it explicitly. For such gray areas, it would be advisable to have central oversight to prevent the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence for discriminatory purposes, much in the same way that actuaries have professional orders and associations. While change is more easily effected from the top down, it would also be worth educating individual consumers on how their data is being used and how they can avoid being exploited by discriminatory pricing. The rise to prominence of digital identity in the modern age has brought many opportunities with it, while also posing many risks. However, regardless of how regulators respond, its importance will only grow with time, for better or worse. For this reason, it is imperative that these challenges be taken head on to both serve and protect consumers.